So, no, I wouldn't say I have a passion for HR.
Welcome back to Human Resources for the People. It's a human capital revolution. This could change everything. The United Auto Workers went on strike last night against General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis. We're going to be talking about what the strike looked like, what the United Auto Workers are looking for, and what the future might hold for the UAW. So let's first start off with what they're looking for. First off, they're looking for more pay. They're looking for just north of 35% wage increase over 4 years. Right now, full-time employees are making between $18 and $32 an hour. However, the automakers are still looking for fairly significant increases from 17.5 to 20% over a 4.5 year contract. So the company's offers are quite high. That works out to roughly 5% a year. It depends on the nature of inflation, but that could keep up with inflation at least. They're also looking for an end to tiered employment. Newer workers work for lower pay and less benefits. That's been the case with many of the demands from the labor unions at this time. UPS had a tiered system, and to be clear here, the tiered system was an agreed upon contractual language previously, right? So the union agreed to that language and now wants that to end. I can understand why they did, but that is the nature of these contract negotiations. In addition, they're looking for better employment benefits. Right now, for retirement benefits, full-time workers hired after 2007 get 401k accounts with a 6.4% company contribution. UAW is actually looking for the restoration of defined benefit pensions that workers used to have, as well as healthcare costs for retirees. I get the feeling that that's going to be a significant sticking point because the costs alone for retiree healthcare would be astronomical, I imagine. In addition, the labor organizers are objecting to the amount of mandatory overtime, saying employees are burned out from working 50 to 60 hours a week. And the union is actually looking for the workers to be paid 40 hours a week, but only work 32. Again, that seems to be a non-starter because if I had to imagine, that means increasing the amount of employees and increasing the amount of cost that is required to make a vehicle. And ultimately, the workers are looking for protection in the electrical vehicle era. As I've covered on this channel previously, electric vehicles are less labor intensive. They require much less employees, and frankly, much of the parts are being made in non-unionized facilities. And as a result, that's a sticking point. The union wants the right to strike over proposed plant closures as Detroit transitions from gas-powered cars to electric vehicles. So last night, workers walked out of three plants in Wentzville, Missouri for General Motors, which had about 3,600 United Auto Worker members on staff, at Ford's Michigan truck plant in Wayne, Michigan, which has roughly 3,300 UAW members, and Stellantis' Toledo Assembly Complex in Ohio, and they have about 5,800 strikers there. In total, less than 10% of United Auto Workers members walked off the job. But this is a pretty interesting strategy because this will allow the United Auto Workers to maintain a strike for longer. Right now, the striking workers will roughly, allegedly, receive about $500 a week from the union, which is a fraction of their current wages. But that means that the war chest is the money that the union has set aside to pay workers to step off the job during a strike. And frankly, many of the unions have very minimal war chests. You saw in New Jersey where striking workers could now apply for unemployment, and I think that was partially in order to pay for strikes in the future. Regardless, they can make these strikes last longer because it will be rolling. In addition, it can be pretty harmful because now you have one kink in the supply chain that will stop the others, and as a result, you could have very disruptive strikes without a lot of cost. Now, what might end up happening is that the hours will be reduced for the United Auto Worker employees elsewhere among the supply chain and non-union employees, of course, in Mexico and throughout the United States. Because as these plants slow down, as these plants are producing less, they will need less people down the supply chain. And as a result, the American economy will be impacted by the strike. The auto industry accounts for about 3% of the U.S. economy's GDP. And if a strike against all three companies in total lasted 10 days, it would cost nearly $1 billion. In 2019, the UAW strike, which lasted 40 days, caused a loss of $3.6 billion. The United Auto Workers has a strong war chest. It has about $825 million in the strike fund, but it would be depleted pretty quickly if all 146,000 workers were to walk out. That's why these rolling strikes or stand-up strikes are pretty functional, because they're able to maintain that war chest for a longer period of time and continue these strikes for a while. That said, I have speculated long on this channel that in reality, I think that the big three need these strikes. They need to slow down production and they need to slow down costs, because at this time, I think the demand for cars is going down and the economy is clearly on the rocks, especially with the amount of inflation that we're currently seeing. People just can't afford to buy cars, and especially not ones with exorbitant interest that you're seeing now. And as a result, I think ultimately the car companies could afford a prolonged strike where they are not paying these employees for a significant amount of time and dropping their labor costs while maintaining the right amount of cars out in the marketplace. So this could come as a benefit. Some of these demands are fairly significant, and if agreed to, these record profits, which are significant, may go away, and frankly, much of the auto industry may run into quite a bit of economic trouble. I think we'll see. I get the feeling that the big three are in it for the long haul, but of course, we'll see. Stay tuned to Human Resources for the People, where we'll be keeping you up to date. You do that by liking and subscribing, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye, guys.